Good evening and thank you for joining us. The snowfall warning remains in effect for the Thunder Bay area from Environment Canada. The whiteout began this afternoon and up to 25 centimeters is expected by midnight. The OPP has shut down the Trans-Canada Highway near Ignace at this hour due to a transport crash. And Lakehead University has cancelled all classes and exams this evening due to the poor driving conditions. Shane will have a full weather story for you later on the news hour.
The Ford government is set to deliver its first provincial budget in the spring, and today Finance Minister Fedeli was in Thunder Bay to discuss the upcoming document. Fedeli attended a pre-budget consultation at the Finlandia Club, but first he made a stop at an event hosted by the Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce.
The previous government was spending $40 million a day more than they took in.
Fedeli told the packed room of municipal leaders and business owners that it's an extremely daunting task balancing Ontario's budget from what the government insists is a $15 billion deficit. He reiterated some familiar PC talking points about putting more money in people's pockets and restoring trust in the government's ability to handle citizens' tax dollars. Fedeli was short on specifics when asked by reporters about the 2019 budget. He says a decision on whether or not to continue the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, which is the main source of grant funding for rural and northern communities, is coming soon. He was also non-committal when asked about funding for health care and Thunder Bay's new prison announced by the previous government. He instead took the Liberals to task on overspending habits, saying that will change.
A lot of the priorities will have to be reorganized to make sure that we can fit into a fiscal framework that still brings relief to families. You know, we've been working very diligently to cut the carbon tax so that families can earn $260 back. If you have natural gas, $80 back. The list literally goes on and on about the relief that we've brought to families.
As mentioned, the public had the chance to have their voices heard by the Finance Minister this afternoon. A budget consultation saw over 30 people and organizations speak to Fedeli on what they think should be included in the government's funding plans. Corey Nordstrom has more.
Dozens rushed towards the Finance Minister's staff to get their number and use this chance to have their voices heard by Fedeli.
It's an opportunity to learn what your priorities are here in Thunder Bay for Budget 2019.
First up was Thunder Bay Mayor Bill Morrow. He spoke on 3 topics: funding for the local Bombardier plant, the cardiovascular surgery plan, and further dollars to complete the Thunder Bay Expressway project.
It would be my guess that $4, $5, or $6 million has been sunk into this project already, and if we don't move forward on it, that money, Minister, would probably end up being wasted.
Morrow says he respects that he and others had this opportunity with the minister.
You all have to do your part. If you don't ask, you can't expect to get accommodated. So you just need to do what's in the best interest of the community that you represent and hope that on some of these issues you can get some traction.
Police Association President Greg Stevenson used his time to ask for more funds in order to complete the recommendations set by the OIPRD.
We're obviously hoping to access financial assistance from the provincial government to assist us in implementing the recommendations and helping our officers do the job that they're sworn to do.
NOMA President Wendy Landry was requesting that the province continue funding towards the Ontario Municipality Partnership Fund, which covers provincially downloaded services like ambulances.
If the OMPF funding is reduced, then the municipalities will have to increase our taxes to make up the difference, therefore taking the money out of the pockets of Ontarians. Leave that with you to consider. I know we've had those discussions.
Minister Fedeli also heard from regular citizens on topics ranging from labor to social assistance.
So if we were to take away ODSP and transfer to a federal model, which is what's being suggested, I think we would see the rise in healthcare costs here in our community.
Corey Nordstrom, TVT News.
There have been a number of protests in our city over decisions made by the PC government since Doug Ford was elected last June. And today's pre-budget meeting sparked yet another rally this afternoon. Students were on hand to protest tuition changes. There were also those calling on the government to reinstate the basic income pilot project, commit to funding the new jail promised under the Liberal government, and more.
There were
were no pancakes, only protesters to greet Vic Fedeli upon his arrival at the Finlandia Club.
Conservatives are no friends of Thunder Bay.
Chants of can't afford poverty and shameful followed the finance minister into Thursday's pre-budget meeting, and the protesters themselves weren't far behind. Some were there over the discontinuation of free post-secondary schooling for low-income students.
There's a sense of anxiety. I've had friends of mine say they're not sure how they're going to afford rent, how they're going to be able to stay in the city of Thunder Bay. They may have to go back home to Southern Ontario because they simply can't afford education without the free tuition.
Fedeli had this to say when asked about those concerns earlier in the day.
The lower income still have tremendous OSAP grants. I would urge them to go on the OSAP calculator and learn exactly what their grants and loans will be.
He also defended his government's decision to suspend the Basic Income Pilot Project, which was supposed to offer some low-income Thunder Bay residents a guaranteed income for a period of 3 years.
We all know that the best way out of poverty is to have a job, and so we've been creating the environment so that the business community here today will invest and create jobs, and that has worked so far.
But protester Trevor Anderson calls that answer insulting.
I got steel plates in my hand. I was born, I can't read and write very well. When I was on disability, I remember starving, and being on the pilot project, I was able to get a safe place in town to rent, but that's costing me $900 now.
Local prison guards also attended the rally, calling on the PCs to officially commit to funding the new jail proposed by the previous government and establish a firm timeline for its construction.
I have to say that I'm very concerned. I don't really, at this point, I have no reason to believe anything that they've said so far.
The oldest and last standing bank in Thunder Bay's downtown South Core is closing its doors this spring after serving city residents for more than 100 years. The Bank of Nova Scotia branch on the corner of May Street and Victoria Avenue first opened to the public way back in 1912. And although the name switched to Scotiabank over the past few decades, the location never changed. Scotiabank officials say they plan to offer customers an updated and modernized banking environment by moving the branch to a new building. Construction of the new location is now underway on West Arthur Street at Parkdale Boulevard. City Councillor and Victoria Avenue BIA Director Aldo Roberto says he was disappointed by the bank's move out of the downtown core, but he says the empty space will provide new opportunities in the area.
There's always rumors about businesses coming and going, and so I did hear some rumors, and unfortunately they're true, because we do love having a bank in the downtown core area. It makes banking easier for the businesses and the people who live in this area. Some buildings have just been sold and new people are taking over. When those things happen, it creates growth, it creates change, so that's a positive sign.
The historic Scotiabank branch will relocate on June 14th. All customer accounts will be automatically transferred to the new location, which will open June 17th.
A Northwestern Ontario First Nation has become largely unlivable because of excessive mold in most homes. Cat Lake First Nation is located roughly 600 kilometers north of Thunder Bay, and Band's chief says the problem in his community is getting worse and people are caught in jurisdictional squabbling between governments. Jill Makashon reports.
Cat Lake First Nation is small and remote. Only about 600 people live here, and a quarter of the population is made up of children, many of whom have become sick, the chief says, living with skin diseases, rashes, and respiratory problems from the black mold that is found in the homes here.
We've lost elders from respiratory problems. We've lost children. They can't go to school because they have skin diseases.
He said one child was medevaced out of the community, sick from mold. The problem, ongoing for years, reached a critical stage in January when the chief declared a state of emergency. He wants the First Nation evacuated while homes are demolished and temporary housing is built. He says more than 60 families are affected. Federal Indigenous Services Minister Seamus O'Regan said his department is working with the First Nation.
We're accelerating those short-term repairs to houses that we can do, and in the long term, we're working on a housing strategy for the community.
But the chief said so far there is no timeline to replace problem homes. Tuesday, NDP MP Charlie Angus toured the community to see the conditions firsthand.
A disgrace of this magnitude is a national disgrace. The minister needs to be in the community because we're dealing with a full-on health crisis that's damaging the lives of children and has caused deaths in the community.
The chief wants to bring in 40 mobile homes on winter roads to get the hardest hit families out of their homes. But he said that would require extra funding, and he said so far there's no commitment by the federal government to provide it. Jill Makashon, CTV News, Winnipeg.
After reaching an impressive safety milestone, Resolute's pulp and paper mill in Thunder Bay has decided to pay it forward by making donations to several local charities. The mill was given a $15,000 Board of Directors Safety Award for achieving 1.5 million man-hours without a recorded injury. Mill officials decided to kick in an extra $20,000 and make donations to 14 local charities. The checks, worth $2,500 apiece, were presented today. Shelter House was among the recipients. Executive Director Michelle Jordan says she's grateful for the contribution.
It was awesome and amazing. We certainly love the support that we get from the community, especially places like Resolute, where they can have a wonderful lunch like this and provide support to many other charities as well.
We put in a lot of hours, and for us to work, in this case, 1.5 million man-hours without an injury is significant. And we get recognized, and we like to reciprocate that recognition to the community.
Roots to Harvest, Evergreen, a United Neighborhood, and the Indigenous Friendship Center were among the other organizations to receive checks from the company.
A unique workshop aimed at human trafficking awareness wrapped up in the Victoria Inn today. Guest speakers and attendees were sharing their stories to try and become more aware of the issues that surround human trafficking in our region. Shane Pasquino has more.
With Human Trafficking Awareness Day just a few weeks away, the Mattawa Health Department invited over 75 different child welfare and social service agencies from across the region to help those workers understand just how prevalent human trafficking is. Anti-violence worker Nicole Stewart says the first step is awareness.
Being aware that it's happening, taking a look for it, and then understanding, like, when you do suspect, like, what are the processes, like how do you get help for somebody. So that's part of what we're doing now, is trying to roll it out to as many agencies and as many like service providers and schools and hotels and things like that, so people can see it and see how do we intervene, how do we help.
Human trafficking is something that not a lot of people think happen, especially right here in Thunder Bay. But as outreach worker Lindsay Martin explains, it's a big problem.
I believe that human trafficking is a huge crisis in the city, and it's necessary that we kind of come together as a community to help combat.
One of the many that are helping combat the issue is guest speaker Melissa Stone. She works with both youth and women in Winnipeg who are being sexually exploited and say it's the vulnerability that the attackers prey on. Winnipeg has systems in place that help those who are in need.
We have 2 safe homes that we run. One is outside of the city because a lot of the women want to get out of the city. So we've opened that up. We have a safe home right in the city for youth. And then we have a 24-hour outreach. Hopefully that you guys will start something like that here, because I know that it's not here and it's needed.
Mattawa officials realize there is more that needs to be done, and they hope workshops like these will only help the process.
Just being able to bring the awareness that it is happening is important. We need a plan together in order to move forward and then have some hope that maybe we can help someone.
Hoping that the community members can all see each other, know what they do, and come together so that we can create a community action plan.
Shane Pasquino, TBT News.
Algonquin Avenue Public School was the launch site of a new healthy food initiative. The Northern Fruit and Vegetable Program will be making stops at schools across the region. The program is being offered at all Thunder Bay District elementary schools and provides students with twice-weekly servings of fresh fruits and vegetables. There's also educational materials which highlights the importance of eating healthy and maintaining an active lifestyle. The District Health Unit program is funded by the Ministry of Health, and the produce is delivered by the Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association. At today's event, the students heard from Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Janet DeMille, about the importance of the program. The kids also helped make a healthy and delicious smoothie.
I think it's a larger issue of healthy behaviors and healthy eating, and we know from our data that We don't have very good rates of people consuming what are the recommended the servings of healthy fruits and vegetables every day, and that includes with children. So that's a problem.
My favorite part is that we all got together, all of us, different grades, and we all got to make a smoothie that we all enjoy. That's probably my favorite part of the entire thing.
My favorite part was probably when we all got to make the smoothie together and we all got different turns trying it and all that.
The Northern Fruit and Vegetable Program has been running successfully in northeastern Ontario since 2006. According to DeMille, there is evidence that the program can influence healthier eating habits among children and create a lasting impact. And that's why the government has decided to expand it to all schools in the north. The program will be launched in Marathon next week. More info is available on the Health Unit website.
Magnus Theatre will debut an award-winning production tonight, which has made the rounds across North America and even Australia. Huff is the story written and performed by one man about the struggles of life in a harsh reality.
And the breath I'm breathing is a story that began a long time ago in the 80s.
Cliff Cardinal takes the audience through a universal tale about the inner battles his character faces and the ultimate problems that arise when he turns to solve an abuse as a form of camaraderie and escape. Cardinal says the dark yet comedic tale may not personally relate to many, but local audiences may still be aware of these situations.
It's about any kids who are on the outskirts, who are disenfranchised, who are having hopelessness in their life, and the coping mechanisms and the way that we seek to connect to each other. And sometimes we adapt coping mechanisms that are harmful to ourselves and to others.
I saw Huff a couple of years ago. It blew my mind. What Cliff does on that stage is a singular experience for the audience. It's different every night. It is a very powerful, somewhat dark story at times, very funny at times, and just riveting at all times.
The show runs at Magnus Theatre until February 23rd, with showtimes every day of the week except for Mondays.